While splitting the two-game weekend set, the Carolina Hurricanes ended with a regular season sweep of the Pittsburgh Penguins and some historical nights for Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the Credentials Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun Monday show for you guys as we get to kind of somewhat recap, but mainly talk about the back-to-back the Hurricanes had over the weekend against the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Talk about a great night for Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis as we saw some career milestones from both of those guys on a multi-point night. And then we also get to hear from Sebastian Aho post-game after the win after the Penguins. But before we jump into all of that, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, the Hurricanes had a two-game weekend set of a back-to-back against the Minnesota Wild and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously, their first meeting with the Wild this season and also their third and final meeting against the Penguins because of that rare schedule oddity where you usually play your division rivals 4 times. This was not the case against the Penguins. But before we jump into the Penguins game, I think overall this is a weekend where it goes back to what I've been saying since the Utah game, more of that Jekyll and Hyde type of season the Hurricanes haven't. If you look at the game, both of these games overall, you could definitely tell the difference of when the Hurricanes are on their A game or if the Hurricanes are kind of struggling and they just can't buy their way into goals and just, kind of have that feeling though there's a lot more of a mental thing going on, with the Hurricanes of, either getting up for some games or having late starts or, just feel like you're kind of just going through the motions. And that's kind of what you saw over the weekend because on Saturday night, the Hurricanes lost 4-0 to the Wild. Philip Gustafson got a 20-save shutout and, not really a game we want to write home about for the Carolina Hurricanes, especially in front of the home fan base for the first regular season home game of 2025, because you go and beat Florida 3-1 on Thursday to kick off the new year when you're like, okay, that was a pretty dominant win from start to finish for the Hurricanes. But then you look at how the Wild game goes. I mean, you got, Matt Zuccarello with a wrist shot. Nothing Peter Kochetkov could do there. Then it just, kind of goes a little bit downhill where you see, Matt Boldy scoring. Zuccarello gets an empty netter towards the end of the game. You almost got first career game for, goal for Ben Jones. Doesn't count. I mean, the Hurricanes do get a goal from Jalen Sheffield, which ultimately was taken back because Jackson Blake was offsides because both of his skates were on the ice in the middle of a line change. While, yes, he was in trying to just get off the ice for a line change while in the attacking zone, by letter of the law, his feet were on the ice and it's offside. So you basically turn, a game that could have been a lot closer to now you're kind of set the fight back. In the end, it just doesn't really work in your favor. And honestly, it's one of those games where you really can't blame, the 3 goals that got scored on Pierre Kochetkov. Maybe the third one, if you look at Matt Boldy's, because the fact that Pietro was trying to go for the poke check, and of course, against Florida, you definitely saw him was more calm, cool, collect. Didn't really work in that favor for him. kind of, got a little aggressive and got paid for it. But, I mean, nothing you can do when you got Zuccarello with, a shot that he is just impossible for Piero to save. Joel Eriksson with a tip-in shot off of Matt Zuccarello's shot. Then Matt Boldy scores, and then Zuccarello hits it with an empty netter. I mean, not much you can do with that. Philip Gustafsson got the 20-save shutout. Zuccarello with a 3-point night. Marco Rossi with 4 assists in a game. And you can just definitely tell the team was kind of deflated from that because you could tell that Jordan Stahl wasn't really happy. He said you can't go out there and kind of just see what happens. You got to be ready for it. And you can definitely tell that Rod Brindamore was just not happy with how that game was because he said there was just no life in that team, and kind of just saw how it was 4-0, and you get 20 shots, and it's you put all that effort and the energy into the Florida game, but you come in and play Minnesota, and it's just from the jump, it's just tough. So it's one of those things where you kind of wish it was more doable for the Hurricanes, but hey, what can you do? And plus, Minnesota is a good team. That's why they're second in their division. Going into the game, they were, had 24 wins already. So, it's just you ran into a good team that doesn't have Kaprizov and a couple other guys. But, once, Phil Gustafsson's on, they score goals. But luckily, though, they did have a turnaround game, all things considered, because of the fact that you go look at the Penguins. You already beat them twice this season in the first, this 3-game regular season series. You beat them the first 2, 4-1 back in October in Pittsburgh. And then you come back to Lenovo Center in November and you won 5-1. So you're already feeling pretty good about yourself because of the fact that you've already beaten these guys twice and in good fashion. However, the first period kind of gave you a bad feeling in your stomach for the fact that the Hurricanes were already down 2-0 to the Penguins because, you got some goals from, Kevin Hayes and former Hurricane Michael Bunting, both wrist shots, both in areas where, Dustin Tokarski, what could you do for him? I mean, just 2 perfectly placed wrist shots, beat him, you're down 2-0 after the first 20 minutes. And the thing is, though, the Hurricanes outshot them 9-5. So you kind of feel like, okay, well, the Hurricanes had a little bit more of a jump somewhat and more shots, but within a span of 3 minutes, you're down 2-0. You're kind of feeling, okay, is this a continuation from the Minnesota game? Because now you're talking 6 goals against in 4 periods, and you've scored none. And you're playing a team who's in 4th place in a division. You're up by 8 points on these guys. It's a huge swing opportunity because if you win, now you're 10 up. If you lose, now you're only 6 up. And it's like, well, the same amount of games, that you came into for each team playing. So you kind of really don't want to drop one to the 4th place team. And luckily, we saw that in the third period was a huge one for the Hurricanes because within 13 minutes, you see Seth Jarvis go for a multi-point night. But it kicks off with him scoring, the goal that cuts the lead in half. Just a great pass by Aho, and Jarvis tucks it in. Then, and then Aho again sets up Jalen Chatfield with the great pass, sets him for the snipe and right between the circles. Now you're tied 2-2. Great celebration from Chatfield. And the fact that took this, a span of I think it was like over, 10 or 11 minutes, in between those 2 goals. So now you're going down from being down 2-0 to tied game. And then not that much later, you see Seth Jarvis on another great opportunity that was set up by Brent Burns keeping into the zone, finds Jordan Stahl, gets to Svechnikov, who gets it to Aho, or gets it to Jarvis, and then boom, it's now 3-2, Canes lead. Seth Jarvis on both of his goals and the secondary assist for Chatfield. That's a 3-point night already, which already tied his career high, and the fact that he did it within like 12, 13 minutes, that's pretty solid for him. Unfortunately, Erik Karlsson does score, ties it in the third period, goes into overtime, so you at least gained a point. Now, and Pittsburgh did too, unfortunately, but not all is lost because you're kind of looking at, okay, you at least got one. Now try to go for the second one, and luckily to cap off his own 3-point night, Sebastian Aho gets the game winner. Gianni on the spot. Dmitry Orlov with a shot for the point. Goes Raf Alex Nedeljkovic, hits Aho's stick, and he just tucks it home. Boom. 4-3. Hurricanes win it, and they complete the regular season sweep. And, you love to see it for the fact that you see points 598, 599, and number 600 for Sebastian Aho in one game. He has a 3-point night with a goal and 2 assists. Then Seth Jarvis has 2 goals and an assist on a 3-point night as well. So Aho's first star, Jarvis is second star, then Jalen Chatfield's the third star for getting the game-tying goal. So those 3 guys did phenomenal. And gotta give props to Dustin Tokarski. While it was a kind of rough start for the first period, played pretty well for the rest of the game. Only gave up 1 more goal to Carlson. Had some great saves. The Hurricanes get the win. Now they're, they got now instead of being 10 points up, they're 9 points up on Pittsburgh. The same amount of games played, that they went into it. So they still have games in hand. But you get the regular season sweep. Now you're up 9 points on Pittsburgh. You don't really see them for the rest of the regular season. I doubt you're going to see them in the playoffs because as of right now, it's the 3 Metro teams are in their spots. But overall, it's definitely a tale of 2 games of very much a going through the motions against Minnesota. Then you come in against Pittsburgh. You're down 2-0, but you fight back to tie it, then take the lead with 3 goals in the second period, which for the Hurricanes, the second period's tough, but they come out and do their jobs. And then, you let Carlson, Carlson ties it on, with the fact that he beat a lot of traffic and Tokarski just couldn't read the puck. But then you come out and still win it in overtime. Shows that, while it's deflated that Pittsburgh tied it, you still found a way to come into overtime, got the win, and you leave with the 2 points completely. You split the weekend. Now you got a day off before you play Tampa for the makeup game on Tuesday. But you're feeling pretty good about yourself so that you didn't let the entire weekend slip by you in the back-to-back. But, you love to see you got 2 guys having milestone nights against the Pittsburgh Penguins, and then Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis. And we'll talk about that. So stick around as we'll go over Aho and Jarvis' special nights here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So like I said, the game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, you saw career milestone nights for Sebastian Aho and Seth Jarvis. Now, Seth Jarvis gets goals number 10 and 11 on the season, gets an assist as well, which was a secondary assist on Jalen Chatfield's goal. And that one was actually career assist number 100 for Seth Jarvis. So pretty awesome for the fact that you're talking about a guy who's like in his 4th year, playing really well. Yeah, kind of had a somewhat of a slump for the most part. He shaved his mustache off, wanted to try something different. And hey, that's one way to do it. He even mentioned too that post game that, he could have had 3 or 4 great opportunities to score against Minnesota, kind of kept him up at night, but the fact that he was able to score and have a huge night like that, it definitely felt some relief. And you can see that from him too, of how scoring the first goal, cut the lead in half, kind of makes up for how, he was feeling against Minnesota, which is great to see. So you really feel good for Seth of how that worked out for him. So, yeah, a 3-point night. You love to see it. And the fact that his secondary assist for Chatfield was his 100th. So big congratulations to Seth Jarvis for that milestone because that's very huge. And the other really huge milestone was Sebastian Aho getting career point number 600 because going into the game, he was at 597. And you're hoping for a big night from him, too, for the fact that it's one of those things where it's, you're coming into the game looking for a huge spark, especially after a game like that against Minnesota. Seeing at 597, automatically great assists for Seth Jarvis's goal. Sets up Jalen Chatfield after Chatfield broke up the play in the Hurricane zone that Pittsburgh had an opportunity. Great back check, goes down and scores. So there's your second assist of the game. There's 599. And then you're kind of thinking, okay, is he gonna hit 600 on the same night, or are we gonna have to wait for that to happen? And luckily, you really don't want to do it in overtime, but hey, they don't really ask how, they ask how many, and it kind of worked out because, like I said, Johnny on spot, perfect timing for him to pick up the rebound from a Dmitry Orlov shot that was put out right for him on a platter thanks to Nedeljkovic, and he ends up scoring the goal. And that one actually puts him at number 600 points for his career. And the thing is, he is only the third Hurricanes player all time in franchise history to hit 600, which is, I guess it wouldn't be super crazy to think for the fact that the franchise, we're talking 1997 to early to January 2025. Not really super surprising for the fact you're talking going on 27 plus years. With all the guys that came through, a lot of guys that had super long careers, not as dynamic as who Sebastian Aho is, that's for sure. But the thing is, the one other guy that had over 600 points with the Hurricanes, his number is actually getting retired here very, very soon against the Anaheim Ducks. And that is none other than Eric Staal. He did it. He had 775 points, of course. He had more as his time with Florida and Minnesota, which is funny enough. It was just kind of surprising for the fact that they didn't do the retirement against Minnesota, but hey, it is what it is. So Eric Staal has got 775. So now if you're talking just straight up Hurricanes since relocation, Eric Staal is the top guy with 775. But if you're talking all of franchise history, including the Whalers, well, that's Ron Francis, who's number one at 1,175 points. Talk about some for elite company for the fact that Sebastian Aho is now part of a list of three guys with over 600 or more points in franchise history. One of them has their jersey already retired, and the second one is getting his jersey retired here within a week. So that's kind of some big praise for the fact that you're looking at Sebastian Aho, who's doing some really high-end company in terms of guys who've gotten over 600 plus points with the franchise. So big congrats to Sebastian Aho for getting the fact that you got 598, 599, and 600 on a night where you got the game-winning goal once again, and doing it in a fashion where you go down from 2-0 up 3-2. Pittsburgh ties it, then you end it in overtime to give them their 24th win of the season. Now you're 24-14-2. Split the weekend. You really can't be too upset about it. I mean, you would love to have a little bit of a better effort against Minnesota or have an opportunity to possibly win, but not get shut out like that. But hey, as Mike Maniscalco said, luckily it's one of those things where you don't have to sleep on it long because you're right back at it the next day, 7 p.m. Saturday night. Then you go to 6 p.m. Sunday. So really when the game's over, you really have a little bit lesser time now in between games, and you come out and have a performance like that where you have two guys with 3-point performances, 100 assists for Seth Jarvis in his career, and then Sebastian Aho with a 600th point. And the fact that he did it on a game winner in overtime just goes to show how clutch he is. And like I said, now he's joined some elite company because now he's only 175 points behind Eric Staal for Hurricanes relocation record for points in franchise history. But overall with Hurricanes Whalers, yeah, he's only about 575 points behind Ron Francis. But I mean, you're talking another 7 years under this current contract after this season for Sebastian Aho. I feel like there's a good chance that, if he keeps having performances of 88 to 90 point seasons and then maybe just keeps chugging along, maybe we could see an opportunity. We might be, seeing the chance of Sebastian Aho maybe catching Ron Francis in terms of points. Who knows? I mean, like I said, you're about 575 back. You're going to have some pretty legit seasons to kind of do that. But hey, you never know when it comes to Sebastian Aho. Because he's still pretty young, still has an opportunity to do some very big things. But congrats to the Aho, congrats to Jarvis of some bigness. Like I said, 3 points from each from those guys. 100 assists for Jarvis, 600 points overall for Aho. You love to see it. And just the fact that you do it on a night where you come back in dramatic fashion, get the win in overtime, and at least you kind of split the series. You got 2 out of the possible 4, and now you gave yourself a 9-point lead on Pittsburgh instead of losing it, and they bring it back within 6. So you love to see it from there. Now, talking Sebastian Aho, we're going to hear from him post-game after them against the Penguins. So stick around as we'll do that here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for. And Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 505 million users and has saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Once again, that's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said at the end of segment 2, we're going to listen to Sebastian Aho postgame as he talks to media following the Hurricanes' 4-3 win in overtime against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So without further ado, let's jump into that with Sebastian Aho right now.
Don't know, when you're out there in overtime, is it your intent to stay on as long as you can? Is it something you think I can do a minute 30 out there, or is that not part of how it happens?
All kind of how it goes, and obviously it's a lot easier when you have the puck, and you feel like you're not tired when you have the puck, and when you're chasing it, it's harder. So I don't think how long I'm being there. I kind of read every situation is different, and kind of whenever's time to change, it's time to change. And this time, luckily, ended on our way.
Tough way to go, especially the last game. Tough going in the first 5 minutes of this one. You find you guys down 2-0. But what was kind of the mentality of the group to stay with it and get back into it?
Yeah, even though we were down 2, I think we played better. Right from the start. That's hockey sometimes. They had a rush chance and put the puck in, and one good ozone shift, and all of a sudden it's 2-0. And I felt like up till that point we had a good game, and we kind of just kept moving forward, push through that, and great comeback.
How much did the Drury line help you guys kind of drag you into the game? It seemed like they were really, really effective throughout.
Yeah, it was good. I thought it was up and down the lineup. We were a pretty solid job, and but they were good.
I feel like one of those games where Jarvie was just everywhere. Penalty kill, power play, even strength. He was just all over the ice. Is that kind of what you're saying from your line mate?
Yeah, he skated well. Obviously, a couple of nice finishes as well, and I thought he had a really good game.
And another big assist too. Andre's been tough for him to kind of find a little bit of that 5-on-5 scoring, but really good assist to set up there.
Really nice play. Yeah, you said it. It's that was a huge play, and obviously got a lead in the hockey game too, and it was nice to see him on the score sheet as well.
Do you feel like a win like this can get you guys on a roll possibly?
We've been lacking a little bit that we have some good games, and then the next game might be totally different. So, there's going to be wins and losses in this league, but it has to look the right way, and something hopefully we can build off of this.
What do you think will be the biggest key next game? Flushing maybe the past month and a half where it's been kind of up and down results.
Start on time, play our game. I know it's cliche, but that's literally what it is.
Big thank you to Sebastian Aho and the Carolina Hurricanes, as always, for that. And you can just tell right away from just the fact that you hear him talking about how, Seth Jarvis had an amazing night where he's all over the ice. You can definitely tell that his impact was huge, coming off that game where he had a lot of chances against Minnesota, couldn't cash in. Now you come in against Pittsburgh, puts up a 3-point night, get a couple goals in the process. And even for Sebastian, too, how great of a night it was for him getting up to 600 points and finding a way to get the win after kind of a slow start. And, also talking about, too, how they asked him, what's like trying to have to go back over the last month and a half and kind of figure out what to do next. And he said, while it is cliche, it's just starting on time. And I think that's kind of the one main thing that's kind of been hurting the Hurricanes a lot over the last month and a half is the fact that you get that weird dynamic of like they'll start games really good and just play a dominant game, or they'll start strong, kind of take their foot off the gas and let the other team back into it and then lose. Or like we saw against Utah, Seattle, Florida twice, Minnesota. You come into those games, you start really slow, or you just never get going, and then it turns into a game of just really ugly hockey. And that's kind of something that I think mentally has been kind of plaguing the Hurricanes for the most part, over the last month and a half, where it's like and Jordan Staal said it too, like you can't just come into the game thinking, okay, we'll see what happens and go from there. It's like, no, you got to mentally be ready and play 60 minutes of hockey, because this is a league where, almost any team can punish you for having late starts. And I think that's something for the Hurricanes of where it's kind of like you have to, there's no off nights. And I've been saying it for a while now, that it's not your grandfather's NHL where it's, okay, you're the Red Wings or the Avalanche or even, the Stars at that time. You can't just go into a barn and be like, okay, we're playing, the Arizona Coyotes at the time, or, the Atlanta Thrashers, or other, middle of the road bottom feeder teams in the league where it's like, okay, you can go in, there's just going to be 2 points sitting right there for you. That's just not the case now. Every team's got superstar players. Every team pays guys to go win games, and you can't just coast into a city and think you're going to get the 2 wins automatically and then kind of, not really play 60 minutes of your style. And, I think right now it's just the mentality of not really being ready at certain times, or, just not playing a complete game. And that's just not something you usually see under a Rod Brind'Amour team. So I think something mentally is just something that still needs to get figured out for the Hurricanes, because you can't just have one game where it's like you don't show up and you get beat, then you show up and absolutely dominate. Because it's where you're seeing a team that went 14-4 at the start of the season to now you're 24-14-2. Like, you're basically 10-10-2 since that great start to the season. So yeah, while you're still playing 500 hockey, it's like what difference does it look like instead of being in third place in the Metro? Are you second? Are you first? If you're playing, I'm not even saying play 14-4 hockey all the time, but at least make it more manageable. Not go 10-10-2 over your next 22 games after starting 14-4. So either way, they kind of what they had to figure out. Yeah, it's cliche, but it's just kind of building off this win and going to the next one because they got Tampa very soon. So it's definitely one of those things where now you have a makeup game coming up instead of having the extra day off on Monday and Tuesday. Now you go get ready, to play Tampa Bay in Tampa on Tuesday. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how that works out for the Carolina Hurricanes. But honestly, though, while it was probably definitely a frustrating weekend where you probably could have gotten more points out of it, hey, you got 2 out of the 4. You'll take it. At least they made the comeback, got the win in overtime. You got to see some milestones from Aho and Jarvis, and that's all you can really ask for. So now it's just take the momentum that you did against Pittsburgh on Sunday and take it into Tampa on Tuesday, and hopefully start stringing some more wins along. We saw them have an 8-game winning streak. Now let's probably see, go get the second one, and then let's move on to 3, 4, and just take it one game at a time. Good guys, that will wrap up Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen today. For the next listen, go find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. I do have link trees in both my bios, where you can check out my articles at the Hockey Writers, or just go to the HockeyWriters.com. You can find my articles over there by looking up my author page at Zach Martin. You'll see them all over there. If you want to check out my other podcasts, well, on podcast platforms on YouTube, it's just the Searchcast. For this show, Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you listen, just check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review, because if you do, I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up button. Let me know if you like the show as well. Share it with all other Canucks who become everydayers just like you. I hope everyone enjoyed the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. I hope everyone enjoys their Monday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.